USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, October 20, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. Jim, a team that is off to a terrific start in non-league play this season is Bentley.
And joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of the Bentley Falcons, Ryan Soderquist. And Ryan, I would say that most coaches would say you're a little suicidal with the schedule you took out of the gate. Northeastern, 2 against Ohio State, Boston College. This is a very aggressive non-conference schedule, but your team's 2-2 right now with wins over Ohio State and, of course, last Saturday's win against Boston College. Tell me how you feel as a coach, just what you've scheduled and now with the results that you've gotten.
Right. Obviously, we went into the schedule this year being pretty aggressive early with the non-conference schedule. We wanted to be battle tested before heading into any conference games. Last couple of years, we had some slow starts in the conference. And frankly, I wanted to get back to learning how to play the right way versus non-conference teams early on. And that's kind of how we developed the schedule like that. Also, you know me, Jim, I always believe if you don't schedule the teams, you can't beat them. And we want to put the toughest schedule that we can. We want to put our guys up against the best programs in the country. So that's why year in, year out, try to schedule those opponents.
You're going to add some good non-conference opponents. Harvard, UMass Lowell, I know are on your slate as well. You just kind of touched on it, but when you think about making a schedule, like how do you approach it? Especially now that you have a very solid, a great home arena, you're pulling good teams in. Has that helped you in terms of scheduling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously years ago, I don't think that Boston College would have come down to the Watertown Arena to play us. So it's helped us quite a bit get some more balance in our schedule. This year, obviously, we actually have more home games in non-conference than on the road for the first time ever. So, in our league, we only need 6 non-conference games. So it gives us a little leverage there in terms of scheduling agreements with teams. But we will only now schedule teams in home and home series. We do not take any, pay for being on the road or any guarantees. We believe that if we're going to play a team, we want to play them home and home. We will head back. We had Ohio State this year, and then we'll head back there next year. But the arena has obviously put us in the position to do that.
Take me through last Saturday's game. Obviously, Boston College had played solid. They had won the icebreaker the weekend before. They played a great game against Northeastern on Friday night at home, and then they go on the road into your building and you I don't want to say manhandle, but when you're scoring 6 goals on a team that hadn't given up 6 goals really all season, what did it feel like to accomplish what you were able to do against a pretty solid Boston College team?
Yeah, it was a great accomplishment for the program. Obviously, really happy with the guys in terms of their focus for 60 minutes and the way that they competed. I thought that we battled hard. That was not a win in which we were able to, have a goalie steal a game. Granted, our goaltender, Grabko, played unbelievable. It wasn't a situation where we won 1-0 and just stole the game or, ran out of the building. We actually, I thought, won a lot of our 50-50 battles and earned our ice out there. So I was really, proud of that. Obviously being a coach, but also an alum of the program, it was a great night. We had a sold-out environment. A lot of alumni back in the building, a lot of student body being there to root on the team. So I think we installed a lot of pride in Bentley on Saturday night, and it was great to see.
Tell me about Cole Cotsey and what went on last Saturday with him. If I have his stats right, he had an assist coming into the game in your previous games. He had, I think, 2 points last season as a freshman. But he ends up with 2 goals, 2 assists on Saturday. What went into his water before the game?
That's a secret we cannot tell, right? No, he's worked extremely hard. He's a great guy. He's a culture player for us. He's a guy that plays fast, hard, and relentless every single night. I was extremely excited for him to have that success the other night. He's put in the work, that's for sure. But he and his line mates, they all played that way. The three of those guys on his line with Patera and Vanderboys, I thought were our best line for most of the night. They were very physical. They were hard. They got to the net and obviously buried their chances. But he's a guy, like I said, it's great to see that success when a guy, didn't come so easy for him as a freshman. And it's great to see that his sophomore year is off to a better start.
You mentioned being head coach for a couple of decades, and I still think of you as one of the young coaches, probably because I remember seeing you play. But as you look back over that time, what are some of the memories that stand out most for you at Bentley?
Yeah, there's been a lot. After the game, I was asked if that was the biggest win that we've ever had. And, that's hard to say, because there's been a lot of achievements. I remember our first win of hockey's team up at Maine, 15 years ago or 14 years ago. And, that was amazing. And, we've beaten BC before. We've beaten them in their building. We've beaten BU. We've beaten them in their building. But I think it was, a great achievement on Saturday night was the fact that we had a sold out building on our campus, and that was Boston College on Bentley's campus. And, I think that was a pretty big mark of a big step taken with the program and to get that win. But, probably, the biggest things, that I come back on is the fact that we're continuing to build. We've gone from a program that didn't have a locker room at a public facility to building a locker room. And then obviously fast forward now to having one of the better buildings in college hockey right on our campus. So, there's been tremendous growth. And, that's probably what I'm most proud of is that we continue to build each year.
Earlier this week on USCHO, I wrote that while any team putting a what I called a smackdown on Boston College, who were ranked number 6 coming into the game, would be considered an upset, it really is past the time for these things to be considered crazy, out of the ordinary things for Atlantic hockey. You go back 15 years, a win like that might be. But with the league developing the buildings and the full complement of scholarships, this is no longer an oddity for the league. And I think the other teams in the league who had success over the weekend would show that too. Where do you put Atlantic hockey right now in the overall landscape among the 6 leagues?
Well, obviously, the parity in college hockey now is tight, and we do have better facilities. We have the full allotment of scholarships. We do have some older guys, some older players with the transfer portal, some grad kids, so there's a lot more parity in college hockey now. And I know we're right on par with the other leagues, and, you're going to, always, they're going to be your top 10 programs in the country that are going to be, really high and hard to beat on a given night. And, those BCs and North Dakotas, but, I do think that Atlantic hockey's come a long way and we're right there on a national scale. And, I think we've been proving that over the last few years. We've been proving that in the NCAA tournaments with the big wins that we've had. And, with a young season already right now, our league has done very well for some pretty good opponents. So, I definitely would say that Atlantic hockey is there in terms of right with all the other leagues.
You mentioned transfers. You brought in a goaltender and 4 guys up front for this season. What were you looking for when you approached the transfer portal? Well,
transfer portal's a little tricky. Obviously, there was a lot of guys in there. We weren't, looking for people that we didn't have a past relationship with, or we didn't know personally, or one of our guys on our team didn't know very personally. We didn't want to just bring in random players. We have a culture that we want to protect. We have a culture that we want to grow. So we had to make sure that we brought in guys that would fit into that culture. And that was the most important component of looking at that. With that being said, we also were able to, I believe, upgrade our skill set in a couple of areas, and it definitely helped us, and also gave us the ability to bring in some experience. You brought in, 4 guys that, were in that 100 game range already in college hockey coming into your program, and that brings a lot of experience as well to the locker room.
Well, we know that the 5th year of eligibility is kind of a one-time thing because of COVID, but what about the one-time transfer rule? Should that be something that stays in place? Would you be in favor of that?
Yeah, it's a really tough situation. I actually, personally don't like the one-time transfer just based upon, I think it's creating a mess in college hockey. And, it's going to be springtime is going to be free agency, and you're dealing with that. It's kind of a pro model now in terms of, managing your team and trying to at least scholarship money open late for the transfer portal. It's just it's a different environment to be in. But it also, on the flip side, has helped some student athletes that were just in a bad situation and they just needed a fresh start. My take on it is I've always believed a kid should be allowed to transfer if both institutions agree. If both staffs and both athletic directors agree, it should be a one-time transfer. It should be allowed. I think that would be a good balance versus just everyone can transfer. So, I'm not in love with the rule, but it is now the rule. I'm sure it's here to stay, and we're going to have to learn how to deal with that and have it be our advantage.
How does that affect you with recruiting? Do you have to make sure that you might have an extra player or two? And on the other hand, do you have concern that you might not have room for somebody if you get somebody in as a transfer?
Yeah, it's just a balance of roster size. I think obviously you see a lot of the programs across the country, even ourselves being at 30 guys is high. It's a lot of guys to manage, and get a lot of kids that are working really hard that haven't had a chance to get in the lineup yet, which is tough to see. So, you're trying to manage roster size. You're trying to manage having a little wiggle room if a really good player comes up late that you like, and trying to have space and money available for that. So it's definitely something unique that I've never been through. And we're still just trying to see how it works out and taking it kind of one day at a time.
More with Ryan Soderquist in a moment.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from US College Hockey Online.
We're back with Bentley head coach Ryan Soderquist. One of the teams that you've had some terrific battles against over the years is Robert Morris, and it was a shock, I'm sure, for you as well as everybody else when the program was first canceled, and now they're trying to get it back together. But as we look at that, what do you think the landscape is going forward for new teams and new leagues? There are some independents that don't have homes now, and then some more teams starting up. Does there need to be a shakeup or a realignment across college hockey?
Yeah, it's kind of hard. Obviously, I believe there's still going to be some pretty good movement in the next 4 or 5 years with alignment. I think there'll be a few new teams pop up, and hopefully, like you're talking about Rob Morris, hopefully they are back and back up and running as soon as next year. Hopefully, it was sad to see that. They've had a great program. Derek's done a great job down there, so hopefully they get back up and running as soon as possible. But yeah, probably my outlook, I do believe that there'll be some movement still in college hockey with a couple of the independents out there looking for homes and potentially some shuffles within the leagues.
We're talking with Ryan Soderquist, head coach at Bentley. And Ryan, I know you talked about culture in terms of your locker room and maybe transfers, always have to fit into that. But how about identity? Do you know what your identity of your team is at this point? I know you're only 4 games in. I know you probably know what your identity wants to be, but do you know what it is at this point?
Yeah, we're getting pretty close, and we know where we want to be and who we want to be. We discuss that on a daily basis, obviously in the locker room. And we're getting close. I mean, you bring a lot of new guys into the program. We didn't just have freshmen coming in. We also had transfers coming in, 5 new guys there. So there was a lot of new guys, and we're starting to gel now and buy into our identity, what's going to make us successful. I think that, the win at Ohio State was a good win. And on Saturday night with BC, it kind of showed who we are and who we need to be and how we need to win. And, I think our locker room is starting to gel and get that identity tight.
Holy Cross, probably one of the more interesting teams in your league. You're going to face them to open your league schedule this weekend. Bill Riga, a new coach, but you played Quinnipiac many times when he was the assistant. It does seem like he understands what Rand Pecknall tried to do down there, a pretty aggressive team in terms of forecheck. What do you look for from a Holy Cross team that, has a new head coach and maybe is trying to put their own identity similar to your program?
Yeah, I mean, Billy will do a great job there. He's been in the business a long time. He's been at a very successful program and learning as well under Rand and being there. And they have obviously a great program at Quinnipiac. They have very similar teams. I would say in terms of what I've seen in film, in terms of how they want to play, they're extremely aggressive on the forecheck. Getting their D involved in the forecheck, and I think that they're a good team. I think that they're better actually than their record shows at this time, as a lot of teams in the country are better than their record show at this time, because everyone's just trying to figure it out and get things together. So I know they'll be well coached. I know they'll be disciplined, and we expect a really tough series Thursday and Saturday.
Lastly, before I let you go, this might be a bit of a self-serving question as a Waltham, Massachusetts resident myself, but what has Waltham meant to this program, especially now that you're playing on campus at Bentley in this, kind of a small community that seems to really love hockey?
Yeah, obviously it's a great community. It's a great hockey community. The Waltham High hockey programs have always been very strong. The Waltham youth hockey programs have always been very strong. And we're starting to get a lot of support from them. And, we're trying to support them as well. We have our guys down there, working with their youth programs and youth practices. And, we're starting to create a very good bond between Waltham hockey and the community in Bentley. So I'm excited about, kind of the growth. I saw a lot of that on Saturday night. We had a ton of the community in for the game versus BC. And it's something that we're going to continue to grow. And our guys obviously know that they need to support Waltham, and we love their support back. So it's a great relationship in the making.
Well, it has been a very nice start for the season for Bentley hockey. 2-2, but wins over Ohio State, Boston College. League play begins this week, Thursday night at Holy Cross, Saturday at home for a matinee-ish game, 4 or 5 start at Bentley. Ryan Soderquist, head coach, we love having you on. Thanks so much for your time, and good luck the rest of the way. We're definitely going to catch up with you, because this is a team that I think is interesting, and it's going to be fun to follow this year.
I appreciate it. Appreciate being on. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ed.
That's Bentley head coach Ryan Soderquist. One of the things, Jim, that I was really intrigued about from Ryan is that they're only going to take home-and-home situations with non-league games. They want reciprocation. They've got a beautiful building now at Bentley for teams to come into. That right there is a huge measure of progress for his program and the league.
No doubt. I know that my high school played in the old arena that they used to call home, the John A. Ryan. My kid plays her youth hockey practices there on Saturday morning. It is not a college hockey facility. And it was a very big struggle for them when they had home games there. But I'll tell you, I look at some of the teams that went there. They had a team that I believe went to an Atlantic Hockey Championship game. It might have been a MAC game back then, whatever it was. I mean, Ryan and his club did everything they could when they were in that building. But since they have had this on-campus facility, I do believe that, and you hear it, that teams will come and play. And the fact that you got Ohio State in your building for 2, and the fact that you got BC there, they're going to have UMass Lowell there later this season. It's a beautiful facility. And they built it right. It's 1,900 and change in terms of capacity. You put, an average crowd in there. It feels loud. It feels like you get a great environment. I think that is the right determination in terms of what they needed for that school. And I know Gloria Lawson was the president back then, and I've known her for a number of years, and she did a great job of getting that building built. And, Ryan and his staff and, the athletic director there, they've done a fantastic job of pushing that program forward. Now they need to take some steps. You've got this building, and you've had some great teams come in. You've now had 2 great non-conference wins in the same season at that building. Now, what do you do within your own conference? This is a team that was picked to finish 8 out of 10. Can you turn that into 4 out of 10 or 3? Like, can you move up in your standings? Maybe make yourselves a team that is talked about more. That's where I think the biggest challenge for Bentley.
They're definitely a team that's better than 8th in the conference, but even a team picked 1st or 2nd could end up 8th in the conference because it is that tightly packed. And you do have the wild card of transfers, making it difficult to see what talent level each team has and see who's going to be good. A couple of things I want to hit on that we talked about, the growth of Atlantic hockey, and also where the league sits among other leagues. I think Atlantic hockey is like 90% of the way there. I don't think they're all the way there yet, but they have made up a huge gap. And I think he's correct to point that out.
I might still put it a tiny bit lower, like 80, 75, 80. They're taking major steps. The scholarships was the biggest limitation, right? Now that that's out of the way, and teams can give the same par scholarships to every other team in the country. Now that you've taken that obstacle out of the way, buildings were an issue, but I think for the most part, we've seen that solved. I think, you still have some schools that at the beginning, Holy Cross, boy, the Hart Center was way, head and shoulders above the Jar and was so much better than the Milford Ice Pavilion down at Sacred Heart and whatever that building that Quinnipiac originally played in. I mean, it was so much better. But now you look at Holy Cross, they've probably taken the furthest step backwards because they don't have a new arena. They need to jump in on that game. Mercyhurst has kind of tried to improve their building with some small renovations. You see, obviously, the Polisani Center at RIT is one of the best buildings in the country. Canisius has a rink that is, a practice arena for an NHL team. Everybody in the country seems to take steps forward. You've got to find every team needs to get on that par. Buildings are always the separator. And it's not just the rink, it's the weight room, it's the locker room. So can you do small things to make sure that you're on par with the rest of the country? That, I think, is the biggest challenge that Atlantic hockey faces now, is just making sure that all 10 schools, 11 once Robert Morris is back next year, all those schools have exactly what they need for facilities to recruit the best players.
I've been interested to hear from coaches, both those we've talked to on the program and some I've talked to offline, about the transfer portal. And it seems like we're coming to a consensus where nobody likes it, but everybody accepts it.
I think you're right. I don't think I have had a single coach say that that's the way they wish it was going for the rest of time, but everybody realizes that it won't change. This is something that was put in through a national level vote. And it was something that was established because of the fact that there were only a few sports, and college hockey was among them: college football, college basketball, men's and women's. I think baseball was in there as well. I mean, these were sports that were just kind of thrown into this random group of you can't transfer without sitting out a year. Every other sport in the NCAA, volleyball, water polo, rugby, whatever the sport might be, you could transfer. And there was no penalty, and it's just, one of those things that you didn't have to deal with. I remember the first time this was ever explained to me, and it didn't seem that bad. One-time transfer, you can only do it once. So it's not truly free agency. But when you look at the numbers and the number of players in the portal every summer, and last year might have been a little bit skewed because of the super senior and the extra year player. But it is not sustainable for college hockey to have 150 to 250, maybe even more players in a transfer portal. You can't have that. That becomes free agency. And even if you can only do it once, every player can do it once. And that's a lot of players that when they just kind of get pissed off of their head coach, they say, we're out of here. And we heard Jerry York talk about it. We heard Joe Sean talk about it. Now we've heard Ryan Soderquist talk about it. Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense for the schools. But that said, it's not going anywhere. I just don't see this as going away anytime soon.
And finally, I think it'll be fun to see Bentley develop its personality this season. If they develop the personality of their head coach, particularly when he was a player, they're going to be a scrappy, aggressive team that can put up a lot of points.
I mean, that's who he was as a player. I remember covering him his senior year, and spent a lot of time in the penalty box, but he also spent just as much time celebrating goals. He was a really talented offensive player, who was scrappy. And he's, you look at Ryan Soderquist. I'm not tall. I'm 5'10". And I know I don't tower over Ryan, but comparatively size-wise, he's a couple of inches shorter. I mean, that's what a player in college hockey at, say, 5'8", 5'7", I don't know what his exact size has to be. You have to be a little scrappy. You got to be a little tougher than everybody else. And this Bentley team, I haven't seen them play live. I've just seen some tape stuff. They seem to have a really good offense. And I think, when I think of the teams we've seen them them put forward over the last few years. They always have good offense. It's just whether they have a good defense that backs it up. So goaltending, I think, taking care of the puck in their own zone, that's going to be a big question mark for them. If they can do that, and it seems like they did it pretty well last Saturday against Boston College, you do that well, you don't know how high the ceiling is for this Bentley team.
Oh, we'll look forward to following them along the way this season. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.